Podcast. We're coming to you with episode 41, and I just played a small little clip, if any of you have heard it, of my good friend, the one and only Dusty Grant. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Not too bad. So, I know I'm so excited to have you on the show because we did talk about this, and when you were first starting your podcast, you asked me to be on the show, and I actually found you because you had done an interview with Dave the Caveman Rickles, who just won his fight at EFC this weekend. And you were actually there, so I want to kind of go right into that. Like, what was the experience like for that card and being at, live fights again in Kansas?
It was amazing, man. I got there. I made sure we had the babysitter because I got young kids, and I didn't want to take them to the fights. But I made sure we had the babysitter early enough to where we could get there and catch every fight. So we were there from 5:30 in the afternoon until the fights ended around 11 o'clock. So I think there was like maybe 7 or 8 amateur fights and 4 professional fights. And some of the fights were modified Muay Thai, where it was just standing, so knees, kicks, elbows, punches, but with small MMA gloves and no grappling.
Oh man. So what was that experience like? Because was that the first live fight you've been to since everything kind of shut down and kind of brought a little bit of life back to to everyday life, really?
Yeah, it was excellent, man. I knew a lot of the people fighting on the cards, just since I've known Dave, and then I did some stuff with the EFC with my music and all that, so I'm really familiar with a lot of the guys that fight there. And they train with me, and we'd go cross. And like Wichita is really cool about cross training and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the fighters from other gyms and things. So I knew a ton of guys on the card. It was an awesome crowd. The production was really, really good, and the fights were awesome, man. You saw like guys that had 0 fights, amateur, their first fight, all the way up to guys that have a ton of fights to a really high level, and it was a really cool progression throughout the night to see how like guys that were beginners that don't even know how to get off their back as opposed to guys that have 40 professional fights, 50 professional fights, stuff like that. So it was awesome, man. Great atmosphere too.
Yeah, and I know you had Dave on the show, and he was talking about people were giving him shit because he's the matchmaker, and he matched himself up against somebody who had nearly 50 fights. So it wasn't like he just matched himself up against some amateur who was turning pro. Like that was a fight he could have lost. So like, was it exciting? Did the crowd just go nuts when he ended up winning? And what was that like for you?
It was awesome. They did walkouts. They gave everyone opportunities to do walkouts on the pro card. If I remember correctly, all 4 of the professional fights were first round finishes.
Oh my God.
So I mean, it was my buddy LJ Hermrich, who I had on the show. I was joking with all the people because I had Alex McGowan, Caveman, and LJ on the show, and all 3 of them got first round knockouts. And I'm like, magic touch. You want to go win your fight in the first round? Come on my podcast. But yeah, it was amazing, dude. It was amazing watching those guys fight. And Caveman got a TKO. Alex got a TKO. LJ got a freaking starching right hand knockout, and he was a heavy underdog in that fight. He was fighting one of the guys from Glory, and he took it on real short notice. And he had a spectacular showing, and it was just like, yeah, my luck that I'm talking about on the hairs on my arms are standing up. It was great. It was really great.
And I love the passion behind it, because going to that first live fight, you're like, oh shit, it's back. Like, you have those moments, and like you said, you're getting to see amateurs who we never know what's going to happen to their career. We don't know what's going to happen, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. There's so many opportunities for them now, not just the UFC. And I really feel that Rickles doing what he did, he went from bare knuckle, had that great performance. He was trying to get a fight. He ends up being able to have this opportunity. So really giving all these guys a chance, just like somebody did on him one day, I thought was really cool. And for you to say that you get to train with some of these guys, what's that like, and kind of walk through, what it's been for your journey as far as the BJJ aspect.
Well, I've trained with, like LJ fought, and had, he had a knockout. I've been training with him for since the beginning, for a little over 10 years. We've both been at different gyms and stuff. Alex, I've been training with him on and off for, 7 years probably. I've never had a chance to train with Caveman. He's been over to Fox to roll and stuff, but for some reason we were just never there on the same day, so I never got a chance to roll with him. But I do, train kickboxing with David's friend Cody Carrillo, and they both came from JMTK with Zerger, and so there's a ton of like lineage and a wide net. So you see all these guys fighting, guys that started as amateurs fighting in a parking lot at a freaking car dealership are now, winning belts, stuff like that. So it's really awesome to see how that's developed, and just being there and training with those guys, getting a little taste of like, in a way, when you train with those guys a lot, you're like, you kind of feel proud for the victory of theirs, because you're like, man, that guy beat the shit out of me for 8 weeks. like that guy just punched my face in for 8 weeks straight. I mean, I have to take a little bit of I want at least just a touch. They're the ones that go do it, but. Yeah, it's been awesome watching those guys and coming up with all those guys and seeing, the levels that they've all made it to. It's pretty impressive.
And I think it's funny because in that moment during that knockout, you're like, I tapped him last week. I beat him up. Like, you're gonna say something just because like you don't know what to do in that moment. You're so excited for them. You're like, I gotta say something smart, something that's gonna work for this. So,
well, and every time I watch them fight, I'm always telling Cody, and I'm telling LJ, and I'm telling all these guys, I'm like, man, I think I get more nervous for your fights than you do. Because when they're walking out, I'm like, okay, come on, dude, just keep your fucking hands
do what we talked about.
Yeah. And they're like so chill and relaxed and cutting weight, and it's like it's no big thing because they've done it so many times. But every time I watch my friends fight, I'm like, I get into it, man. I'm a huge fan, so I get into it. I still get suckered into all the fights, and I watch as many of them as I can.
Well, and that's what it comes down to. Like, it's just easier for him to call him my brother-in-law at this point. My sister's boyfriend, he fights. He was the 145 champ. And it was the first time, I had talked about this before, but my grandmother loves MMA. Will text me on a Saturday night, be like, did you see that knockout? And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. But my mom hates violence. My mom's never been a violent person. My mom's been a nurse, was a nurse for 20 plus years. Can see someone gushing blood in real life and it won't even phase her. Sees fake blood on TV, can't watch it. Like, can't do it. And when my brother-in-law fought, I think it was last February, my mom, my sister, my grandmother, and myself all got a table and we watched the fight. And it was so fun to just watch. And like you said, you get more nervous than the fighter in there is, because at that point they've already let it go. They're like, I've done everything I can do. Like, now's the time to put all my tools to use. But for us as the fans, for us as the family, for us as the friends, like whatever it is, you're like, don't mess this up. Put your hands up. You're screaming, put your hands up when they're on the ground. Like,
I get it. And I try to put myself there because I do it with shows, when I have bigger shows and bigger opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And I'm preparing for them. I'm almost taking a walk, listening to my catalog and going through it and like doing, even when I'm not playing my guitar and I'm not practicing, like I'm doing mental reps of my songs. I'm not listening to them to smell my own farts. I'm listening to them because I'm trying to envision playing my songs and performing and getting into the groove of it. And like, I wonder if those guys are focusing on like, all right, this is my strategy and all that, or I wonder if they're just like, oh fuck, because like, sometimes
why did I do this?
Sometimes I do this? Yeah, sometimes I get myself in situations with shows and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, you're playing in 10 minutes, dude. What the fuck are you doing? And like, so I can only imagine what that feels like when the guy across from me is like mean mugging you, ready to take your freaking head off,
Well, and I think you just gave us a perfect segue Being somebody that's practiced jujitsu for the past 10 years, you also have another passion, which is music, which is, something that's kind of like one of the biggest opportunities probably that you've ever had is coming up in a couple weeks. So I want to start from the beginning. Like, how did you know, or when was that time that you said, you know what, I think I'm good enough to keep going and, end up with, people being able to physically buy, like physically, yes, this is real. This is not green screen. This is real. People being able to actually buy your music and go, oh shit, like I've done it.
It was when I went solo in, I think it was September of 2017. I'd been playing in metal bands and recording with metal bands and doing a little bit of traveling and all that kind of stuff. And I was just singing at the time. We had a situation here change when we had the twins and I couldn't get out and be in a band as much. So I started teaching myself to play acoustic guitar a little more. I started getting a little more serious about it. And I ended up writing a song, and the first song I wrote, I've just made a rough post of it on Facebook, and people seemed to dig it. And I was like, I'm just going to go record a couple tunes with my buddy, Jason Catlett, who's actually playing guitar with me now. Mm-hmm. At that time, he was opening a studio, and he's like, yo, I need people to come in and learn with. And I was like, I need to come learn. So this is perfect.
This is perfect, yeah.
And so I went and did a few demos with him and put them online, and they did okay. And they ended up getting me some shows. And then I started recording with Dawson and stuff like that. And that took off it took off from there, just because he's such an amazing producer and such an amazing, just as an engineer and mixing and everything. And he's taught me a lot about songwriting, as has everybody that I've worked with. Mm-hmm. But I started releasing tunes, and I just wanted the experience. So I started booking, 40 shows a year. I did all the booking myself. I think I covered 7 states. I played 130 or 140 shows in 3 years. Wow. While working, a full-time job and having 4 kids and training jiu-jitsu. So I burn the candle at both ends, and I always kind of have. And it just seems like if I just keep showing up and I keep writing music and keep swinging, that good things are going to happen. And I really don't have a preconceived notion of what it's going to be or what I think it's going to be. I don't care about being famous or any of that shit. At this point, for me, it's about the journey. It's about making music that I'm proud of, and having experiences and meeting great people and feeling the magic when you play with other people on stage and that kind of thing. And I just want to do that as much as I can. So that led into last Wednesday or Thursday, I was driving home from work, or I was talking to a guy at work, and I got a call on my phone that looked like a robocall, a fucking warranty call or something. So
the extended warranty has expired on your vehicle.
Exactly. So I just swiped that off my watch quick, and I was like, fuck that call. And then I got in the car, and it was a message, getting offered the Daughtry show. So I am, I'm less than 2 weeks away from opening for Chris Daughtry, which will be a mind-blowing experience, I'm sure.
What was it like when you listened to that voicemail? Were you like angry that you didn't answer the phone?
I was. There was a high level of anxiety there, because I was like, are they not just going to call the next person? Am I going to miss? So I stopped my car and I pulled over and called the person right away. They told me that I could play it. I believe they told me I could play it acoustic solo or with the band, but I wanted to try and get the band on board. So I called everybody right away, and they're like, yep, we're in. We blocked the time. And I'm like, sweet, we'll take it. And, here we are.
And it's so cool, because when I saw that, I was so happy for you, because realistically, like, we talked a lot about this before the show started of, putting our time into a lot of extracurricular activities. And you said it, you even said the phrase burning the candle at both ends. So you feel like, this was kind of a sign to be like, you know what, let's try to see where this music takes me. Because honestly, this isn't just opening for somebody at like a small festival. Like, Chris Daughtry may not be the person he was 10 years ago, but he's still relevant in the music world. And he's still somebody that like eyes are going to be on you, and people that have never seen you before, never
he's
heard
got,
of you before.
He's got a song at he's got a song at radio right now that's destroying the charts. So like, he's super fucking, it's super badass. I was like, really?
Yeah, me?
This is really.
Did you call the right guy?
Us? Do we have the right number here? Are you kidding me? You know, it's just crazy to me. It doesn't seem real to me. I'm still, but it is very real. You know, since I got the call, I've been freaking jogging every day, drinking tons of water, trying to get sleep, rehearsing, practicing every waking minute that I can. You know, when I'm not with family or when I'm not working. The band and I are going to be rehearsing our asses off for the next week, you know, to get ready for it. And if I go out there and have a great performance or a bad performance, I can go, no matter what happens, I know that I can walk away from it and go, hey, I did everything I possibly could to be ready. And that's all you can ever do. And I think that relates to fighting a little bit when guys train like that. It's like I've done all the preparation, all the dieting, all the focus, all the fucking, it's all led up to this moment. And now it's time for me to shoot this monkey into space and see what happens, you know? And that's
good. The best analogies of anyone who's ever been on the show. Like, hands down.
That's just kind of what it feels like. And, you know, the fact that I even have a band playing with me is kind of an accident. And now, you know, most of my shows this year are full band. I only have one solo acoustic show on the books, and that's how I started, was just playing solo acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing has just been kind of wild, man. Like the last few weeks have been surreal with, you know, a couple cool opportunities. It's like fucking back to back when, you know, you wait your whole career for opportunities like that. You know, this may be the biggest show I ever play in my entire life. You know, there's a good chance that it is because it's a pretty big show. So,
well, you can't say like that's a bad thing.
Not at all.
Realistically, like you said, you self-taught yourself or started to teach yourself 4 years ago. You know, as far as guitar goes, you know, singing in a metal band, not everybody can agree. I absolutely love metal. I think metal, the community itself is completely underrated as far as like the accessibility and the just sheer niceness, I guess is the word I'm looking for, of the metal. Yeah. Everybody expects them to be dicks and to be assholes. And it's like, I've never met anyone in metal, anyone, whether they're the biggest band I've seen or the smallest band on the venue, like, doesn't matter. Always so happy to meet a fan, get excited when you have, you know, stuff of theirs, you know, whether it be physical albums, and I'm going to go the wrong way. Watch, I'm going to do it. Yep. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. So My Children, My Bride is one of my favorite metal bands, and everything that's behind me, there's 2 pictures that have been hand drawn by the lead singer. Shout out to Matthew Hastings. I love that dude. But again, like somebody who, when I showed up for a concert, like would text me and be like, hey man, where you at? Show me another band, another genre of music that will do that for their fans.
It's a lot of, you know, I got a lot of friends like that, and I'm that way. I think nowadays, or I don't know, maybe it's always been this way. I can only speak on what I see now. But it sure seems like the people that are successful out there are, not that I know, because I still work a full-time job, dude. Like, you know, I'm a grinder, and that's all. You know, I play because I love to play, and I have ups and downs just like everybody else does. But it seems like if you're going to make it anywhere, you have to be a good person, because nowadays, if you're a shithead, it's so easy for it to get around.
Yeah.
I've had a couple people talk shit on me and kind of attack me, and I just kind of ignored it, moved on with my day. You know, I don't have time for those fucking people. You know, I'm too busy focusing on positive things, and I think that's something that's happened for me, like in the last year or so, learning how to compartmentalize that stuff. But I think if you're a dickhead nowadays, like especially in music, or even if you're a fighter or something like that, and you're coming up and you have this shit attitude and you're miserable to work with, there's 50 other guys in line that want want it just as bad as you,
Yeah.
or 50,000. You know.
And I love that you said that, because you're right. This last year has changed everyone's mindset. It's changed, what was important to us in life. The things we said, oh, I don't have time for this, I can't do this. You did that. You have those things where you have people who started a venture or a business venture because they were too afraid to do it before and have done it now. And like you said, you say something shitty on the internet now, they're going back, they're going after people for stuff they said 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's so much more accessible and everything is really there. And I just want to bring this up because it's something that's been crazy that's happened over the last few days, is that video of Joe Schilling that surfaced. And I know you've seen it because you're like, yeah, that one.
I saw it today, yeah.
So people are seeing it and they're like, oh, he's a fighter, he should have held his composure. And I watched the video probably about a dozen times. The guy backs into him, he pushes him to the side the same way any guy would do that in that moment, to be like, hey, I don't want you to run into me. But the things I've seen after that of girls that were messaging Joe Schilling saying, hey, that was my ex. He was abusive for 8 years. Thank you for that. Like, it's a weird way that, like, an MMA
I haven't seen any of that.
Okay. I will have to send you that. So there's tons of people reaching out saying, like, that was a friend of ours. We've tried to tell him he's out of line. He's, getting to be too much. Do I think Joe Schilling should have cold cocked him like that? Maybe. As a regular guy, yes. But as a fighter, you have, it goes back to Con Air. And I freaking love Con Air. But he got a different sentence because of his military background and because of how he handled that. So with Joe Schilling, like, listen, some good came out of that. But at the same time, you're like, people look at it and go, oh, it goes all the way back to UFC 1. They're barbarians. It's human cockfighting. They don't, they can't control their temper. And that's not exactly how this works. So.
And the thing is, it's like, if somebody rolls up on you and they do a move, like they're going to do something to you.
What do you do?
I don't know. I mean, I've been in almost 2 fights from the time I've trained, from the beginning of the time I've trained to up to now. In my entire life, in 11 years, I was almost in 2 fights, neither of which were what I started or anything that I did, but I talked my way out of them like a grown-up does.
Like a grown-ass man.
Like a grown-ass man that has something to lose. And I don't know, man. Like, you could, instead of pushing the guy, you could say, excuse me. Or maybe he's a jerk and you just walk away from him, this ego thing that everyone, I think we're all growing out of that. I think our society's growing out of that. I can beat up you, you can beat up me.
Yeah.
It's real fucking stupid because nobody wins that situation. I almost got assaulted at work one day. A guy was trying to fight me, had no clue what I knew or anything like that. He was about 170 pounds. I could have folded him in half in 5 seconds. But he was talking bad and talking and saying stuff and provoking me and like really trying to get me to go in front of people at work. And I just turned my back on him and went back to work. And then like my face was red and I was trying not to kill him. But I think I impress people at my work more for not going outside and just making that guy into a grease spot. You know what I mean? Like I think when I put out the big dick energy and just said, listen, I got better things to do than beat up some asshole at the office, man. Like, get out of here, you jerk. You got fired. Get out of here. Quit trying to fight me. I'm a grown ass man, dude. Get out of here. I think
that's the best thing about it is that we live in a society where you have that opportunity to talk them down. It doesn't always have to be the fist fight. And that's easy for, like we said, both of us to say, I've said it on the show before. I've been punched twice in my life.
I've been punched a lot.
Neither one of them was, so one of them was on accident. I I was walking, it was like 6th grade. I'll never forget this. It was 6th grade, and there was a kid in front of me, and then me. And the kid in front of me, like, tapped the dude on the shoulder in front of me, and he just kept doing it and moving to the side. And this kid just turned around and swung, and I got hit in the face, and I was like, what was that? Like, what just happened? And the other time I actually got hit was I was at somebody's like house party. And not like house party like where there's people drinking, because I wasn't ever invited to those because I didn't drink at the time. And somebody was like hiding in the bushes, and I like scared him on accident because I didn't know he was there. And he jumped up and punched me and thought it was somebody else. Like, those are the only 2 times I've had a physical confrontation with somebody, other than my story that Leonard Garcia and Tom Schaff and Eddie Wineland now make fun of me for, which is my favorite story. And there's nothing more than, nothing better than having an MMA fighter make fun of you for a story and laugh at you. But
well, there's nothing you can do when they do.
Yeah. Eddie, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But it was like 10th grade, and the girl I was dating at the time broke up with me, and this kid on the bus just kept making fun of me. And I remember walking up to him, and I went, and my fist opened right before I hit him in the face. And I looked at my fist, open hand now. I looked at him, and I just went, you're not worth it. I went and sat down like a psychopath.
Yeah, I've been in a couple, man, when I was younger, in my 20s and stuff like that, a couple real ones that had bad consequences. But then when I started training, I think I found a level of maturity, understanding, what the repercussions can be, especially when you're training with people that could actually just destroy you whenever they wanted. You're like, oh my gosh, if I ran into this guy in a parking lot, he could kill me.
Yeah.
I think that's a very real visualization that happens when you first start training jiu-jitsu and you have a 150-pound dude that you outweigh by, at that time I was 70 pounds heavier than him, and he was just schooling me.
Just running circles.
He's just destroying me, tapping me every 30 seconds. Like, this dude could kill me in a snap of a finger, And so I think when you walk into that environment and you understand that you have no choice, where either your ego is not going to let you come back, or you're going to learn humility immediately and realize, oh my gosh, I want to learn how to do that. All these guys know how to do that. I want to learn how to do that. And it's not an easy thing to do when you're a young man, to admit I'm not that tough, because we've been raised to think that was important, and it's really not that important at all when it comes down to it, unless you have to defend your family from an attacker or something, which, let's face it, is fairly unlikely.
It is, but it's nice to have that semblance of knowledge to be like, I could do something. Yeah. I can do something to try and prevent this from reaching a level where it's out of my control. You've been training, you're a brown belt, you've been training for over 10 years. Like, what started you in jiu-jitsu? Was it a love for MMA? Was it somebody else that said, hey, you should do this? Or, like me, I watched MMA for almost a decade before I ever committed myself to the mats to be like, I want to know how to get out of that position.
At the time I was in it, when I moved down to Wichita, I had watched the early UFCs with my buddies, like, bootleg VCR tape. I'd watched the old Tank Abbott fights and all that when I was, a teenager in high school. But I really started to get into it when I moved down to Wichita. I had a couple buddies that were really into the fights, and I didn't know anybody at the time here. So they're like, hey, you want to come watch these fights with us? And so I'd start watching the fights, because I always liked the UFCs that I'd seen. I just never really, at that time in my life, it just wasn't something I was paying attention to. Mm-hmm. I was playing football and all that shit. But then I got down here, and I started watching the fights, and I just started becoming fascinated with the with the ground game. There were guys that were just dominating on the ground, like George Soteropoulos, if you remember him.
Oh shit.
That kind of, like, those kind of guys that were just really, when they got on the ground, it was just like, oh my, it's only a matter of time before that guy gets that. It's so, like, it was so bizarre to me that I looked around in town to see if there was a gym, and sure enough, there was. And thank God I did it, because honestly, at that time in my life, I think I could have strayed a different direction. And then I got around a couple gyms, and I didn't end up sticking at those gyms. But at that time, I met a lot of guys that I still train with that have moved gyms and all that. And they're still my friends. They're still influences on me, and they're still my friends before they are my training partners, and I found a brotherhood when I started out, and I really needed it. And at the beginning, it really wasn't even about the training for me. It was more about getting in shape, because I was letting myself go badly, and it was about keeping myself doing something constructive. I wasn't trying to win every tournament. I wasn't, I was just showing up. And at the time, I was going through some rough shit. And those guys were like brothers to me, and I was hooked. At that time, I felt like I was in debt to the martial arts a little bit. The jiu-jitsu gave me some guidance when I really needed it, so it kind of made me stick it out, even though there were times when I didn't want to. To where I feel like I owed it back to the art to continue training and to continue trying not to be a freaking psychopath, but it's been, the jiu-jitsu's been a tough road, man, for me. Honestly, it's caused me a lot of physical injury. I've had a couple surgeries from it. I've had a concussion from it. And I look back on it, it's like, well, yeah, you've been striking for 6 or 7 years, and you've been doing jiu-jitsu for 11, and you played football from the time you were 12 to the time you were 20. Your body's probably telling you at age 40, like, hey, bro, you're going to have to start doing some shit differently here. So I haven't been on the mat since, November or December. I went up there for promotions. I still have hopes to get back to training, but I am rehabbing my neck and being really careful, because it got to the point where my hand was getting numb and I couldn't play guitar. And I was like, well, I don't want to not be able to do jiu-jitsu and not play guitar.
Yeah, right.
If that happens, Daddy's going to be a very miserable boy to be around. And so I've just been, taking walks, going for runs, working on my guitar technique, trying to take care of my voice a little more, and, trying to make the best of it. I set out to get my black belt by the time I was 40. When I started training, had I not been injured as many times as I've been injured, I probably would have hit it, because a lot of my friends that I started with are black belts now. But I have to look at it as, I've had, and music in the last few years has taken away from my training a little bit too. It's been a little harder to get in and roll, like, especially when I was touring and stuff. It was hard to get in and train. You were resting and preparing and all that shit. So I want to get back to it. I want to get my black belt, but I'm going to do that when I feel good enough to, because I am sick of being hurt.
So I get that. And I think, having that goal set of, trying to get where you want to be as far as a black belt. And I'm going to shout out, Coach Jay, Coach Devin, both two guys in our dojo who got their black belts over the weekend.
Nice.
Guys that, I'm, as a bigger guy, I'm not afraid of a lot of people's triangles, because most of the time I can stack and I can, distribute my weight properly, where it's incredibly uncomfortable for somebody to hold on to that. And I tried to do that with Jay, and Jay gave me a chiropractic adjustments where I felt every bone in my spine go because I tried it. Never again. So congrats, Jay. I know you're mad at me that I wasn't there on Saturday, but I hope this will make up for it. But you're right. Getting hurt is part of jiu-jitsu. And I think that's something that most people don't understand. I'm I like to say second degree blue belt, 2 stripes, because it sounds cooler. But realistically, for somebody who had such a passion for the sport and I'm watching fights and going, I don't understand why you're not just getting up. Like, why aren't you just moving to the left and doing this and doing that? And then I get in those same positions and I go, oh shit, that's why. And I'm like, those are guys that are the same weight class. And I say same weight class because we all know, 170 fighters, when it was BJ Penn was walking in at 170. Guys now are cutting to, over 200 to make 170. They're not as tiny as they used to be. And you've got that weight differential in there. So when you've got somebody who, like you said, 50, 60, 70 pounds lighter, and they just chuck you around like you're nothing, you're like, I got to know more. It's infectious. It is addictive. But it's something that people need to realize, like, you can get hurt, and it's not because your training partner tried to hurt you. It's not because you did something wrong to get hurt. It's just sometimes it happens.
And a lot of the times I've been hurt, quite frankly, were fucking ego. A lot of the times I got hurt were when I was a young macho man and I thought I was just going to muscle this pass. And then the guy rolled on my foot and I snapped my ACL in half, just overdoing it, not tapping to a freaking guillotine because you think you're going to get out of it. And then you eat soup for 6 weeks because you fucking got a sore throat. A guy cracked your throat. I mean, it's like you are going to get hurt doing it. But the sooner on in your journey, and it took me a while, I think, but the earlier on in your journey, you can realize it's not about ego and you need to train for longevity. I think the more successful you will be, because I know a lot of guys that are training fucking 4 or 5 days a week and they've never been hurt. But it's how they approach training and it's how they take care of themselves and it's who they choose to roll with. And like, I never used to turn down a roll, man. I'd take on all comers. If it was 7 or 8 rolls in a row, going hardcore, I would go. If guys needed extra rounds for fights, I would always go, all that kind of thing. And it's like, dude, when you're 40, sometimes you should just go home.
Yeah. And I think for me, I had, we talked about this on one of the other shows. Like, I pumped out a bunch of shows because I had 10 teeth pulled. And, they were like, you can't do any physical activity for a week. And I'm like, I mean, a week doesn't seem like long enough. So I waited 3 weeks before I rolled again. And you're absolutely right. I got to the point where, the blood flow started to go. And what I've noticed is one of the craziest things for me is that if I roll too hard, my body's way of telling me to stop is I lose my hearing, which is terrifying.
You should probably stop.
So in that moment, so I don't let myself get to that point. And it's exactly like you said, when you first start training, you go, I'm a badass. I'm going to show them how good I am at this. And they put you in a rear naked choke and you don't tap. And you start to, you tap right before you black out.
Have you gone out before?
I have not.
Okay,
I have not.
I have.
I won't let myself.
I have.
But it's the ego thing. It's the ego and it's the awareness that, like, hey, I don't like how I feel when I get that close.
No.
I'm not going to let that happen. And like you said, you have to know when to tap. There's times I don't want to tap. I say, I can get out of this. I can. But on the flip side, if I move the wrong way, my arm is broken.
Yeah.
It's not my training partner's fault. It's my fault for not tapping. So I like that you just said, I've gone, you've gone out, because it's a fine line.
Would I ever? Absolutely fucking not. No way. But it was new gym, training with new guys. I had a guy had a rear naked choke on me, and I was like, if I could just get my thumb, and I was out. I was thinking if I could just get my thumb between this guy's grip and my gi, and I can make a little bit of space to maybe pull some air in, I'll be fine, and then I can pop his grips. But I mean, then I woke up and people were shaking my feet, and it's like, you dumbass. So now, especially once I got my brown belt and I'm a little older, man, like I'm not going to compete. I'm just not. I don't have the time or the desire to like do an IBJJF tournament in Vegas and like do an 8-week camp where I diet and don't do anything but train, because that's what everybody that's going is doing nowadays. And for me, training's not about that anymore, especially when I get back now. If I do, when I do, I am just going to be grateful to be on the mats with my friends, and I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to appreciate every minute that I have on the mats, and that's all I'm going to focus on, because life is too fucking short to not enjoy it, man.
And it really is, because, you know, jiu-jitsu is a weird sport where you get hurt and you just want to go back.
Yes.
Like your body is like, and I realized that, you know, after having the surgery and everything, you know, sometimes taking a week off, and I'm sure there are black belts out there who will disagree with me 1000%. Sometimes you just have to take some time off, because I noticed when I took a week off, you know, I trained for a few weeks in a row, and I took a week off because we had, you know, family in town or whatever the case was. The next week I went back, I felt 10 times better.
Oh, yeah.
I felt, you know, not just more rested, but I felt like mentally I was in a different place. You know, rolling, you know, going to the open mats, and I will tell everybody, go to open mat. I know you like technique. I know you like guard pass night, whatever the case is, whatever, like go to open
mats. I like open mats.
Open mats are life-changing. And I'm somebody who, like, probably the first year and a half I like put into jiu-jitsu, I was only going on guard pass night. And you learn a lot, but you don't learn a lot, if you know what I mean.
No, you learn the perfect situation practice way to do it.
Yeah.
Now can you do it on somebody that's trying? You know, somebody that's not just laying there like a dummy.
Me going through, like, I never did the introductory classes. So I had watched MMA long enough. Like, I never learned to shrimp. I never learned to front roll. I learned that when I do a front roll, I see stars and get dizzy. So I don't do front rolls. So it's pretty simple, but everybody has their different journey. And like you said, those open mat situations, you're going to get one of two people. You're going to get somebody who's ready for just a flow roll, and you guys have an excellent run, or you're going to get somebody who's looking to push themselves that day. And I had a roll, not this past Sunday, the Sunday before that, with a brown belt from our school who I'd never trained before. And the dude moved so fast that at one point my brain stopped working. Like, he jumped from my left side to my right side, like over my legs completely. And all I could think about was, that was really cool. And then he choked me out. And I was like, oh,
you can have it.
Yeah. But the open mats are so important. And like you said, because an open mat is going to teach you a different form of humility and a different form of ego.
Yes.
Because in that moment, you're not competing. Like, I want to compete just once to say I competed. The whole plan was for me to compete as a white belt.
You're going to be disappointed when you do.
And so COVID happened. Everything shut down. You know, we opened back up because in Florida, we were, you know, back to kind of opening, and we were training with masks. And training with masks sucks, because that's what we had to do in order to be open. But you and I both know, like, one push of the face, there goes your mask. Trying to breathe. Like, I even got one that had air vents, like there were plastic air vents, and I realized how terrible of an idea that was.
Guillotine handle.
Yeah, people were like, well, and that's the beard. Cutting the beard down is something that I've had to do for jiu-jitsu, because what I've realized is somebody scoops right in here. I've tapped to a beardotine, is what I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
You know, they get just enough hair, and you're like, that hurts.
I got pretty tough with it, man, because I didn't go long beard until I was a little bit higher level. So people aren't on my neck as much as they used to be, you know, before I used to keep it a little tighter. But like, man, it's been a long time since I've even rolled. You know, I wrestle with my boys, and I mess around with them because they take jiu-jitsu at the same gym I train at, and I still go to the gym and say hi to everybody and all that all the time. But I've been on the music thing here, like really focusing and dialing in on that, just because, you know, the more it's just been a priority. I think I've failed in the past to prioritize it, and I've always been a jack of all trades, and I've spread myself too
Master of none.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And spread myself too thin. And now that I'm not obligated to training like I felt like I was before, I've been able to lean into it a little bit, and it's bared fruit. So, you know, I think it was kind of a weird sign that it was time for me to maybe take a little bit of a break from the wear and tear and get my body right and get some physical therapy and take some walks and, do some maybe some much needed self-care. So I've done that mentally, physically through all this time. And, you know, I don't think that's a coincidence on getting opportunities. You know, I think it's, if you work on yourself, you know, life has a funny way of rewarding you for that.
Yeah. And, you know, I love that you brought that up, because like you said, you and I are kind of the same person in the sense that, like, we're always looking for an opportunity to express ourselves in a creative, I don't know why I said it that way, a creative manner. I'm trying to get fancy, apparently.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm running, you know, I've got, like you said, a full-time job. I've got a photography business on the side. I do the podcast. I write. I run the social media for a brewery. Like, I'm always looking for something to challenge myself. And I feel like we're the kind of people who focus, you know, 20% here, 20% here, 20% here, and we're losing out on the full potential. So I feel like, you know, you started the podcast, and I know this past week you had said it's going to go on hiatus. And I know, you know, a lot of people are upset about it, but at the same time, you know, it's going on hiatus, not just because you said, I don't give a shit anymore. You're like, you weren't like, screw this, I'm done, whatever.
No.
Like, an opportunity came up where you needed to focus and put your life into that. So, you know, talk about the start of the podcast up until, you know, where we are now, where, like you said, you know, less than 2 weeks away, you're opening for Daughtry. You've got, you know, hits on the chart. And I know I could see it in your face. You're like, holy shit, this is really happening.
Yeah. I was, it was during COVID, obviously, the podcast came to light. I was doing a podcast with my buddy Sprout. We were doing a show together called the Sprout and Dusty Show, and we had a really cool following, and it seemed to work pretty well. The schedules just didn't allow us to continue to do it. It was just too hard to nail everything down and nail guests down at the same time. So I actually took, you know, what I had learned from Derek Relaford from Back Home Media, and from doing the show with Sprout. I just kind of learned how to do it and set it up. And I was getting into some graphic design at the time, and I wanted something to use to, like, kind of test my chops and then practice my chops. So I started making flyers and stuff. And then I just started inviting friends. I started inviting guys like you. I started inviting fighters that I knew, musicians that I knew, to where eventually I was getting like Christian Machado from El Nino and Fallon Bowman from Kitty. And, you know, had some really cool interviews, really cool experiences. I'm not done with it probably. I'll probably pick it back up. But it started to feel like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for me a little bit. It almost felt like the music, if I could take the 4 hours a week that I'm dedicating to my podcast, because I don't think people that listen to podcasts realize how much work it is on the back end to make a good podcast and to set it up and promote it accurately, you know, adequately, and all that it's a freaking chore. So I just was kind of doing an analysis of my time and how I was utilizing my time and how stressed out I was. And I was like, man, one of the major stressors is making sure I have to keep booking podcasts, making sure every Wednesday I have to be at my house to set this up. I got to make a promo video this day. I got to do this day. I got to edit it. I got to upload it. I got to do all this stuff. And then at the same time, chase people down, make flyers, you know, doing all that stuff. It was like, if I had started to focus that energy on something else, what would happen? And I kind of didn't have a choice. I got offered a couple shows And it was like, okay, buddy, get your ass to work. And so that's where I'm at. Coincidentally, the stopping the podcast had nothing to do with the Daughtry booking. I had actually decided the Wednesday after I did the caveman episode, I loved that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes I ever did.
It's a great episode. I've listened to it twice. So,
but I got to the end of that one, and I kind of talked to my wife before. I was like, I think I'm just gonna stop doing this tonight. She's like, wow, okay. And I'm like, well, I need to focus on other things, or I need to simplify my life because I'm feeling super anxious about stuff, and everything feels like a job to me. So coincidentally, I gave up the podcast Wednesday night. I got the Daughtry offer Thursday. So one door closes, another opens, right? A friend of mine said that to me. And it was just, I got to tell you, man, after 20 years of being a musician and all that, to get a win, just getting asked to do this show and even being on the short list of people to be considered for it. It's like, every once in a while to get a win, it's really validating, or it just makes you feel like, okay, because a lot of times as an artist, as you know, you feel like you're spinning your wheels, you feel like you're pissing in the wind. And for once it was like, I'm not, like somebody noticed, and it was good enough to get us an opportunity. And, let's go make the best of this opportunity. It may be the best one we ever get. Who knows? You know what I mean? But it may just be the beginning. You never know. That's what's fun about it.
And it is. And anytime somebody says pissing in the wind now, I just think of that scene from The Big Lebowski where he's spreading the ashes and they just fly back up, because that is a perfect representation of that, analogy. And like you said, you decided on a Wednesday, like there's no coincidence there. There's absolutely no way, because in your mind, if you hadn't have, given up the show, you would have been thinking, okay, well, now I got to reschedule this guy or cancel this guy or do this or do that, or how am I going to have time? You literally made peace with it at that moment, and not to say that the show is over. You said you've done 38 episodes.
Yeah.
I'm on 41, so I'm not we literally started our podcast right around the same time. So I think it's so cool about that. And it's because of these podcasts that we even know each other.
Definitely.
And seeing Caveman post something he did with you, and I watched the episode and I was like, I like this. Like, this is a great kind of person. And being able to listen to your music, I'm not just saying it. I don't just have the background. Like, I love your music. It's fantastic music. And you've got a voice that it reminds me of a Corey Taylor, like Stone Sour kind of element. And I know some people wouldn't like being compared to that, but at the same time, you bring something different to it. So with that being said, your focus shifted. You said, I need to change my focus, but I don't know where to. And then you get a call the next day. That didn't happen by accident. Come on. Like,
yeah, it's weird to think
in whatever you want to believe in, but
yeah, it's weird to think about that. And life has a funny way of balancing itself out, doesn't it? I had gotten some pretty bad news earlier that week. I had some personal stuff that happened, and I was really down. I was really, like, part of me dropping the podcast was because I was just really down. And I was like, man, I haven't had a win in a while. I think I'm just going to mail it in for a bit here. I'm going to take a week to 10 days to just kind of work on myself, because I have another show booked the following weekend, playing a solo acoustic set. So I want to kill that. But I was like, I'm going to give myself a week to give myself some downtime and recalibrate. And then I walked into work Thursday. I remember it. I was like, I'm going to have a good attitude today. Let's make a choice to have a good attitude today and just see what happens. And I did. And at the end of the day, I got a show offer, and my complete psyche has turned around. And a lot of it is because of just making a conscious choice to, you can sulk about this shit, or you can get up the next day and keep fucking swinging. You love to do this stuff. Get your ass up, quit feeling sorry for yourself, and get moving, buddy. And I did that, and something good happened to me. So it's like I don't know why or how or what happened, but I'm going to try and repay the universe for that by working my ass off and doing the best I possibly can to represent. And that's all I can do at this point, you know.
And I feel like the best comparison for that right now is Brandon Moreno. You know, the guy was the lowest seed on the Ultimate Fighter, gets cut from the UFC, comes back, wins, and now he's the champion. So I feel like you have just embodied that. And of course, the two storylines are pretty close in time. So, you know, I love the outlook on it. I love saying, you know, you saying, you know, I want to give back. I've got to walk into this with a positive impact, because it's the same thing with fighting. It's the same thing with training jiu-jitsu. If you go into jiu-jitsu and you go, I'm going to get beat every time, you're going to get beat every time. If you don't understand that a loss on the mat is a win for you, it's another minute you've spent out there. It's another minute. And it's just like as a musician, you know, that shitty gig you played in that bar where somebody threw a beer can at you because they thought it was funny. Yeah, that was necessary to get you to where you need to go. And I feel like you're shaking your head because you're like, how did you know about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, you go through it, man. Like you go through when you tour and you're an independent artist and nobody knows who you are, you go through that. You know, you go through the 6 hours of driving for $20 maybe. You know, the bar
like
won't even
wrestling.
The bar won't even give you a fucking beer. You know, you're eating gas station food, shitting in truck stops, sleeping in Motel 6s or sleeping on somebody's floor. And it wasn't always that way. You know, I did have some gigs that were pretty fucking good and had some really nice hospitality, which also made it fun. But having those experiences that were really important to me, to kind of like pay tribute to the people that I've watched coming up, you know, to know and friends that I admire even that have been independent artists for a while, and watching them do it on their own, and they're doing it for the right reason, and they're doing it for the journey. And once I think you've matured a little bit as an artist once you realize that it's not about anything else besides you putting your best foot forward and using your art to gain experiences that you want to have. And try to give back as much as you can. Realize it's a business. You know, it's a hustle. You better be ready to fucking slit some throats. You better be ready to have your throat slit. You better be ready to hear no a lot. You better be ready to hear you suck a lot. You know, people telling you your music sucks. People telling you your music, you know, you suck. You're ugly, your video's stupid, this or that. I mean, like, you better be ready for it, because regardless of how good it is, everybody's getting that. And at the lower levels, it seems like you get a lot more of that. So maybe it like galvanizes you and thickens your skin a little bit, you know. And I think you need it, and I think you need to have maturity. And I think having those experiences gives you maturity, so you're prepared for bigger opportunities if they ever come. In most cases, they don't, in my experience. But, you know, I can't say that right now, because I've been fortunate to play 2 back-to-back really badass gigs, and I'm just thankful for it. And no matter what, I'm always I've told myself, you know, I'm going to go out there and fucking enjoy it. I'm going to try to remember it. I'm going to try to enjoy it, instead of, oh my God, I'm so scared, and oh my God, this and that, because that's what I do to myself. You know, I torture myself with nerves, and like, it's like, you know what, man, I'm going to go out there and have a great attitude, knowing that I've played these songs 1,000 times and I've done the work, and what's going to happen is going to happen. And we're just going to go out there and fucking play and have fun and savor the moment. And the cards will fall how they fall, and it just makes it so much more. It makes it a little bit less torture, I guess. I'm still nervous as fuck, obviously, but it makes it a little less torturous, I guess.
Listen, man, I'm nervous before every podcast, before every interview, before every photo shoot. I could have shot with somebody a dozen times, and I'm still just as nervous as the first, because I feel like nerves in our art are helpful.
Yes.
You know, they stop us from being that asshole with the ego. Like, hey, you know, I'm this person. I'm this good. Like, you're never going to be the person who's like, look at me, I'm better than you.
No.
Like, you're a person who's appreciating every opportunity, whether it's music, whether it's the podcast, whether it's, jujitsu, what anything in life, being a dad to 4, which bravo, like you get the clap for that one. Because I know even to start the show, like there was thumping upstairs and you're like, I'm going to kill those kids, but I love them. I love them.
You have to look at it that way, man, because if you just let the bad shit get you down all the time, you're just going to be miserable. I've spent a lot of my time with that mentality, fighting some depression and some anxiety and some other stuff that I've experienced and all that. And I know everybody has their story. But I let it get the best of me and kind of suppressed it, thinking that, nobody wants to hear it, or I'm a weirdo for feeling what I feel or whatever. And then I went and actually got some help with that, and it changed the whole direction of my life. So it's all about, just get up every day and keep fucking swinging and learn and grow and do your best. And that's all you can freaking do. And that's a lot. I don't know. Lately I've been thinking that way, and it just makes me a lot happier overall.
So if you haven't already, which I'm pretty confident in this, if you don't have a song called Keep Fucking Swinging, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I got a lot of ideas, man, but I'm trying to use the shows this year to kind of promote my existing catalog, because I feel like it's been slept on a little bit. I feel like I've got a pretty solid group of songs on there, and I don't feel like enough people have really delved into the catalog. So I'm going to try to, I'm writing all the time, obviously, but I'm going to try to focus on promoting that material for a few months. And then, in the fall, when shit starts to slow down, maybe show-wise, probably go record some more stuff. But if the shows keep coming, man, I'm gonna play the shows.
Well, I'll tell you this: if I could be there for that show, I'd really love to be there, just because, like, seeing somebody just love what they do, and being able to support them. And this goes for anybody listening. If you've got friends who have a small business, just because you don't buy something from them, just because you don't like their music, just because you're not into, just promoting it and saying, hey, if you're into this, I think this would be great. Because we've all had friends who are in bands that we do not like, but I will share that stuff all day. We have friends who make things that aren't for guys. I will still share those things all day. So support your small business friends, because you never know how you sharing that particular post is going to change or impact their life. So
it's very true. One tweet, man, can change my whole perspective on my journey as an artist. And I know that seems frail. When I say my journey as an artist, like, it doesn't mean I'm ever going to stop writing and playing music. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the hustle and the bustle of promoting it and doing all that. It would be really easy for me to slip into obscurity and just use my existing network and go continue to write music and record music and have it be very low pressure. But that's
not a challenge.
That's not what I want right now. So I kind of like the pressure. I kind of want to find out what I'm made of in front of the pressure. So I'm going to continue to pursue that pressure, as painful as it is.
Well, I think your pursuit of pressure is the jiu-jitsu metaphor.
Yeah.
Making that coal into a diamond. You want to get that black belt. And it's not just to say, hey, look, I've got a black belt. And you're not doing this show to just say, hey, look what I did this one time.
No.
Like, you getting a black belt is a culmination of years of hard work, injury, dedication, loss, depression, pain, everything, joy, whatever you want to call it. And it's the same thing for your music, because like you said, you're not going to play this show and go, all right, this is the highlight of my career, I'm done. Like, you're going to see if you can take yourself to that next step. You're going to see if you can push yourself to that next level. And for anybody listening, if you're on that fence where you say, I'm not sure if I go for it.
Do it. Buy the tickets, take the lessons, take the seminar. Even if people tell you you're stupid, even if people tell you it's a bullshit hobby or a pipe dream, if it's something that you're passionate about, you should go after it and not quit being a pussy.
Listen, when I started dedicating myself to jiu-jitsu, I said in 2020 I want a blue belt. COVID hit and I went, oh, well, that's not happening. A few weeks of training, I got my blue belt, into 2020 after everything had reopened. And I went, all right, 2023, I want a purple belt. And, setting those small things, like you said, you wanted a black belt by 40, you went straight to the top. You were like, this is where I want to be. And I love that you don't think of it as a failure or, hey, I didn't hit that goal. Because sometimes I feel like we just hit ourselves with unrealistic expectations and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
No.
Nobody saw last year coming,
No.
Nobody saw that, but we've overcome and adapted in the way that we need to, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's music, whether it's any of that. So, now's the moment I want you to take the time and tell everybody about these shows you have coming up, where they can buy tickets, where they can watch you, and someone from the show needs to go to this damn thing, and it can't just be Caveman.
Well, I've got, this July 10th at the Capitol Federal Amphitheater. I'm opening for Daughtry. July 17th, I'm playing on the patio at the Shamrock Lounge in Wichita, Kansas with a band called Ether. They're going to play Unplugged, and I'm playing an Unplugged solo acoustic set on the patio. It's free. It's 21 and over. It's going to be pretty, I think it'll be pretty rowdy, I'm sure. It usually gets pretty rowdy at those.
Shamrock Tavern like that.
Yeah, it lives up to the name for sure. And then August, I want to say it's August 7th or August 8th. I should have memorized all this before I came on, but I'm going to look quick. It is August 7th. I'm doing a benefit for my buddy Richard Payne. I know you've seen what's happened to him in his accident and all that type of stuff. So I've got Barleycorns is letting me use their venue. I've got the Ghost Town Strays. I got Cody Moore. I got Faya joining me from Wichita. They're all doing it on, just out of support for my buddy. And then I think a lot of the jiu-jitsu community in Wichita will be out for that show. In September, I'm playing a brewery, and then I've got something in November that I cannot announce yet. So, yeah, I got something big in November that I can't announce yet. But I'm going to record. I'm going to continue to write. I'm going to just continue to chase it and play and grow and learn and do awesome shit. That's my main goal, is to play music and do as much cool stuff as I can.
Keep swinging.
Yes.
Keep swinging.
Keep fucking swinging. Absolutely.
You got to trademark that, like, now. Like, after the show, like, just get it.
I need to make a shirt. I got to go now.
I got to go make this. Well, I want to take a time, everybody, I've been throwing it at the bottom. The Quiggin Out MMA Podcast on YouTube. Like and subscribe. It's free. Check out Dusty Grant. If you can't see that it's literally there, he's on Spotify. He's probably on everything else, because that's how it's really easy to get your stuff everywhere now, which I think is great, because we, versus when we were kids to now, it's so much easier to be able to find the music. Taking a moment to thank the sponsors. I'm loving these little bubbles. They just make everything so much easier.
Right.
La Barba Cubano, or El Barba Cubano, the beard care. My buddy Aaron, just excellent, when it comes to this stuff, and it keeps the beard, fresh, keeps it smelling good, but it keeps it healthy at the same time. Fat Boy Jiu-Jitsu, if you're a Marvel fan, he does have a Thor on Mjolnir, like a neon belly, but it's a neon Mjolnir. It's a pretty clever shirt. It's been in a couple of my shows. Just awesome guy, and his journey actually started because Conor McGregor called him a fat piece of shit on Twitter, and he lost all this weight because of that. Like, that was his driving goal. So I hate that I mentioned Conor and that you're getting any credit for anything, but here we go. Also want to take a moment to shout out my friend Tim. Tim makes knives on Instagram. Tim's been doing a lot of Forge stuff, like Forge and Fire. Huge fan. Hopefully we'll have Gene Click. He was actually on an episode of Forge and Fire, and he's a BJJ black belt in Tennessee. Really cool dude. But Tim's been making knives, and we're working on a knife that we're going to give away to a random guest from the show or a fan of the show. We haven't figured out how that's going to work. Look at this guy raising his hand. And also Bertsos Bakeshop, which you can see right there. One of my good friends from high school, somebody I hadn't seen in like 10 years, ran into her. Makes the most amazing treats you've ever had. So if you're ever in Florida, or if I find out a way to ship them, I will get them to you. But on your end, like, thank you so much, Dusty, for being here.
Proud to do it, man. I know we met a while ago, and it's good that I finally got on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, might as well. So I want to just thank you on behalf of Combat Press, myself, Matt Quiggins, Dusty Grant. Dude, I'm so excited for you. Like, I really am, because this is a huge thing for you. Like I said, I really wish that I lived anywhere closer to Kansas so that I could find a way to make it to this show just to be there and see you on that big stage. So congrats to you. So happy to have you, and they'll definitely have to have you back soon.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to do something, I'm glad to do it. Appreciate you, brother.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Later.